This is Dr. Charles Parker, and you're listening to Core Brain Journal. It's a place where I connect both fresh discoveries and interesting different perspectives from advanced mind science with the realities of real people and everyday life down on Main Street. Well, welcome, folks. Dr. Charles Parker here one more time at Core Brain Journal, and we have a very interesting conceptual person here who actually takes the mind and thinking into some creative activity and self-awareness. And ultimately, we're going to talk about branding. So we're going to talk with Leslie Nolan. Hey, Leslie, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm very excited to be here.
So I'm going to introduce Leslie, and then we're going to talk more about what she does, which is quite interesting because she's going to talk about, friends, contemporary symbolism. That's going to be an interesting thing because I do want to ask about, she is a contemporary symbolist, my friend. So we can anticipate that. It's going to be very interesting. So Leslie is an entrepreneur, visionary artist, motivational speaker, and founder of Leslie Nolan Design. She works with creative entrepreneurs who have lost their mojo and inspirational vision and helps them reclaim their power so they can find the courage to create their, in capitals, great work. Sounds like a big challenge, really. So just a little more intro. Her years of experience and success radiates when she speaks on vision, mojo, and how creativity and consciousness can actually make a breakthrough, and how it fosters healing and clarity as inspired in lecture, lab, studio, and workshop. Through the magic of painting, this is an interesting point here, she helps create, clients, I didn't read that correctly, she helps clients uncover and create their true genius so they can stand empowered and shine. Sounds a little bit like branding to me, but let's talk about it. So, Leslie, tell us a little bit about yourself and your perspective on what we were just talking about there.
Okay, so thank you so much. So I am an artist first and foremost. I've always been interested in painting and art since I've been a young girl. And I focused in on the communication arts. I went to Pratt Institute. And through high school, my painting methodology, I worked with a wonderful teacher who had a government grant to teach children creativity. And I started in 8th grade all the way to senior year. And then after graduating from Pratt, when you start the world in the publishing or marketing or advertising business, the first few years, you're usually not trained for your mind, you're trained for your hands to get some work done.
Oh, yeah.
So I started to take some side classes at Hunter, the Open Center, the School of Spiritual Arts on consciousness and spirituality in art, which has always been a sideline interest of mine. Mm-hmm. And have this year, I guess I'd be my 32nd year of having my own company. And over the years, my work has changed. And I would say, even though I've taught painting on the side to children and to adults, the real change happened during my father's passing. There was so much drama around with the family, and of course, so much sadness. When a parent dies, it's very riveting. And the next day, I picked up the paintbrush and I started a beautiful painting and wrote a novella. And it was an online course on leading your legendary life. And I took that class and I painted. And after that, I continued to paint and paint and paint. And I wanted to learn as much as I could about painting with intention, because that's what I saw for myself as my great work. And I guess in a sense, that's what I've been doing all along and not realizing it. And so now I coach others on how to make their own breakthrough in painting, specifically working with creative entrepreneurs who've lost their mojo, mm-hmm. which could be just, some heart pangs, some motivation, so that they can reclaim their vision in their life and create their great work. And their mm-hmm. great work may look like a painting, or this painting methodology can help them to kind of access and reveal what it is that is their great work in the world. It could be that they're a yoga practitioner. It might be that they want to be a real estate developer.
Mm-hmm.
So there's different ways of using painting as a really means to kind of unblock and to really hone in on your vision.
So they can find out who they are. So I would like you to just take a moment, if you would, because you're using some phrases which are very familiar with you, but they're out of the ordinary language base for some of us.
Yes.
Like painting with intentionality. Now, I know you were, it sounds like it's going in the direction of finding yourself through painting, but could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. And I would say that you are finding parts of yourself through painting. The best way I could describe this is that when you set an intention through your painting, might be something like, show me the way to access my true creative genius and find my great work. For instance, that's an intention.
Mm-hmm.
So I first work with my students when I'm doing my private mentorships on what it is that they are wanting to uncover or reveal. It's usually something with regarding their creative purpose in this life. So their intention might sound something like that. So we literally write that intention on the canvas. And then we do something called visionary imagination. And this is, you probably know this, it's kind of like a Jungian thing where you do a meditation, you go inside for some symbols. So I do a guided meditation where someone will try to access a symbol. It might be a rose. They might see an image of a person. And from those simple symbols, we start to sketch and design and then put that design on the canvas. And through painting the imagery in the symbols on the canvas, sometimes more symbols are revealed through the canvas. And we actually start to dialogue with this image that's on our canvas. Mm-hmm. So you can look at it sometimes as, sometimes I might have a specific, somebody might come in and say, I'd like to paint my higher self, or sometimes they don't have a specific image that they know that they want to paint. And I think that's better because those I'll use the word energies or symbols or figures come through. It's almost as if you're using your unconscious mind and you're painting a part of yourself to access more information that's really inside of your own mind.
But it's representational and symbolic. You're
Correct.
It could be a frog, or it could be a flower. It could be
yes.
It could be a bird.
Yes, it could be a tree. So I will say to I had one student who only painted abstractly, and I said to her, I can't really work abstractly at the beginning. As you're doing your first few colors, you can be abstract. It can be abstract in certain areas of the painting, but it has to be a sentient being. It could be a tree, a bird, a horse. I've had some workshops called painting the spirit of the horse or painting the spirit of the owl. And you can gain a lot of information internally from painting these beautiful symbols.
Mm-hmm. So now let me ask you that question. So once you gain that information, the person who does that, and we were talking a little bit offline before about this process because I think I've done it through doing presentations. Just standing up in front. It's interesting how when you're doing a presentation and you have all this thought and organization in your mind, but something new comes up in terms of putting it together in some fresh way as you go to this other place while you're talking in front of an audience. You just have
That's
a different.
Correct.
You have a different.
It's amazing, right? You're talking and you're a little on the spot and you kind of know your outline, and then all of a sudden this idea pops in.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the way I'd like to describe it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the same thing happens with painting, and I do encourage my students to journal as well as paint, because there is some science, and maybe you might know about this, of using the left and the right side of your brain. And as you're using these things, you're creating new synapses and new connections for your brain to really come together and create these new pathways. That's frequently what my students will say, is that you create new pathways. This painting process helps me in creating new pathways to connect to myself in a deeper way.
It was so interesting because Dr. Michelle Braun in Core Brain Journal 107 was talking about this in regards to the development of preventing Alzheimer's and aging. And she was talking about the pulling the two sides of the brain together. It was really quite interesting. And right after her was Steve Campbell on 108. We've had a number of people talking about this synergy and growing the two sections of the brain so they actually communicate more effectively.
And there's a lot of there's a lot of research on that, I think, also happening out in Princeton. And it is kind of fascinating. And they say it's almost like a muscle, in a sense. It is a muscle. But I do believe that you are using your brain. I do believe you're using your heart. And I'd also like to think you're using your brain. And for some people like me, I'm very visual. So visual on the external world, but also my internal world as an artist has really strengthened over the years. And I think these are things that we can utilize. There's lots of parts of us as human beings that, we might be very strong in our auditory skills or even kinesthetic skills or empathic skills. And a lot of those things are strengthened through the painting process.
So then they're actually, to just simplify it a little bit so that I can really get what you're talking about, is they transcend the limited way that they think of themselves. And in the process of transcending it, they, in a way, they create and connect with other parts of themselves that might be dormant, that they're not really truly connected with, that actually do give them a greater sense of internal security. I don't like the word power so much because it sounds so vertical, but it really is an authoritative approach.
Yes, from themselves, from within themselves. It is. It's almost like this higher authority within yourself. And sometimes, we get so stuck in our story. If I told that horrible story around my siblings and my father's death and only focused on that,
where does it go?
Where does it go? It just loops and loops. And, after a while, I don't want to hear myself.
Yeah,
I want to hear my own head think, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So what I would say is we are kind of creating our own reality by changing our thoughts. You could use the word transcending, but it's like we're tapping to another place inside. We're accessing parts of ourselves.
That's a good point.
We're really accessing parts of ourself. Right? Mm-hmm. And it's without the external stimulus. Like, I could do retail therapy, but that's not going to really make me feel better. I might have another shirt. How many shirts can you wear? So I would rather, transcend. And in a sense, this is really could be about your life work, or just being creative is so freeing and fun.
Well, it's so good because one of the other things we were talking about, which I find so interesting in your work, and one of the reasons we really wanted to have you on, is because there's a connection. To take it down to a street level, we like to take these concepts, core brain concepts, and really bring them down to applications that'll work in Possum Hollow, Alabama, and how does it work how does it work on the street? And one of the words that comes down on the street level is branding. How often it's been for me in doing these interviews, and we've done over 100 of them now, how many interesting people have a lot of information but don't have themselves wrapped around a mission and really don't have an internal brand. They don't have a message. They have a lot of good ideas, but they haven't packaged it. They haven't wrapped it up and here is the package, Parker. I'm telling you, this is the way this works. Now, there are a lot of people who are very packaged, and they come on I'm going to tell you what the deal is. Here is the deal. This is the way it works. And they have that sense of packaging, and that's probably diminishes it in a certain way, but that's what it is. I mean, from a street level, I say, what are you talking about? Well, how does a person package themselves, but how do they package the multiple concepts they have in terms of productive energy that can contribute to the overall development of humankind? I mean, it's a bigger thing than just talking.
You know what? You just said a very important word, and that's the word is energy. And that's what I think it really comes down to. So regardless of brand, which I think is a very marketing word and kind of a commercial word. And if you want to say a street level for somebody who lives in another state, it's really about energy, right? And so this entire world that we live in is created of energy, some that is manifested in heart and you feel, and some that you can't see. So, I mean, in a sense, we're talking about seeing, that's something that comes internally. That's still kind of an energy. So you want people to feel good, right? But if you want to talk about branding and energy, it's really kind of, for a lot of people, and we'll talk about folks, they could be, folks who've spoke to you on your podcasts, who have tons of information. They probably are so incredibly well educated. It is a completely different way of thinking because they are spending their time, working with their clients, not on this branding formula, which is a whole other thing.
Yes, it is. So, good point.
So if we, really talk about that, we'll sidestep and really go over in that direction. Frequently, we have so much education, we have so much experience in our working life that if we offer too many things, somebody can get lost in that.
It doesn't.
So it's really distilling your information. You need to distill your information. And this is one of my gifts as a graphic designer and a visual person, because a lot of people speak words. I see it in images. So my job would be to come in to create an image. Could be a logo, could it be a brochure, could be a website that kind of distills what a person is all about without words. Or, sometimes there's the words, your name and your tagline in 2 sentences, but it's really about distilling that. And that's, really a marketing capacity that if people want to learn it, they can certainly take courses or they can work with marketing folks to help them in distilling their image and their message.
Now, I'm going to take what you just said one step further, because the word that comes to mind right there is, because in a way, marketing is commercial. And there are a lot of people like, hey, I don't want to be commercial. But it's really their, and this is a phrase, not a word, but their message capacity. They're increasing their ability to get the message across in a way that could be perceived and become actionable, because the person can actually integrate it in some way. It has a coalescence, is another word I like, of a variety of attributes or whatever that comes together in a package. It's a coalescence, and then it becomes a coalescent message that then becomes actionable because the person can embrace it. It has a reality. Even though it's a thought or a series of thoughts, it has a reality that you can actually embrace and take inside and connect with.
Yes, and I could say for myself, my niche is exactly doing that. If you were to ask me 2 years ago, I would have probably explained what I do in a completely different way. But it's the same way that it feels it's really hitting home for me, which is I work with creative entrepreneurs who've lost their mojo and inspirational vision, and I help them reclaim their power so that they can find the courage to create their great work. Now, what might work for you would be different than would work for someone else.
Yeah.
But it has to feel right for you at this moment, because the work that you may have been doing 5 years ago might not be the same kind of work you're doing now. And what I can tell you that they're saying, and especially with the online branding, is it's really best if you simplify and focus on your specific core niche instead of spreading yourself all the way out. I used to be of the thought, the more that I do, the more fish I catch, right? And that's not necessarily a thing, because my heart might not be in doing publication design anymore, which it really isn't. That's not really what I'm doing these days, right? I'd rather help you in you coalescing your information and creating a brand, or helping you help yourself to be able to express yourself in a way or create an image that transcends and brings you to, distilling the image that you want for your work at this time. I think that that's more interesting to me. So for each person, they have to really think about where that energy is for them, what really sparks them in their span of their work, and really fine tune who they're packaging their work to and what their message is.
Now, we're going to package what we're talking about right here. This is going to be, and I want to put you on the spot, but I think it's...
Oh, that's okay.
We're having a variety of different things that we're talking about. There's some very, I think, meaningful, transcendent, internally accessible things. It's not just transcendent. There's accessing different parts of yourself. But the next level is, give us an example of where this happened with a real person, so we can embrace that kind of thing. Or maybe,
I'm going to give you, I would love to. I'm going to give you an example of two of my clients. So both of these ladies came to one of my group workshops many years ago, and they came to different events I would have, or different meetups that I would have at the house. And at the time I was only doing workshops, and just the last few years I've started to do mentorships. So one of my students, Maria, she came to one of my workshops. She had been through a divorce. She had, raised her children. She got a job at Target so that she could have health insurance and benefits. And on the side, she liked to teach yoga. So the first painting with me was really about unblocking some, I'm going to just say fear. She was really unblocking some fear of some of her natural talents and abilities. Sometimes we stop ourselves, our critical mind, from what it is we really want to do. So after that painting that we did together, she was then working about 80% at Target, 20% into her yoga practice. We continued to paint together, and we did a longer mentorship. And after that, we did a workshop together. It was really quite beautiful, a painting and yoga retreat. And it was just phenomenal. And we hope to do that later this year in Sedona. Then she was 50% Target, 50% on her. She started to do her own mentorships in her yoga, and she was into sound because that's one of her other specialties. So she was doing her healing practice in that. And the last painting we worked on together was 80% in her yoga practice and 20% at Target. And her intention, her creative intention, was to go 100% all on her own. And in the meantime, Target no longer offers health benefits. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't holding her there.
End of conversation.
And she just told me last week that she's 100% on her own. And she said when she knew it in her body that she no longer needed to be there, the rest of her time got all filled up in different opportunities. So for her, you could see her great work is not the painting itself. Her painting is a way to access the information for herself, as a way to channel this information and transcend and know that she's on the right path. So that's one example of Maria.
Stop right there, because I want to ask you a question now.
Sure.
Give us a little bit of a visual. I don't know if you can, because painting is almost like you have to be there, but give us a little bit of an idea of the evolution of the content of the graphics or whatever it was. How did she start? And then just maybe two examples. I mean, where did she start, and then where did she go? So
you mean with the painting itself?
So the painting became a message to both of you, and mainly to her, of course. But then I'm sure you helped her with that realization.
This gets really, really deep, which we might have another show on this at another time. Chuck.
It's interesting to me, I'll tell you. And I know others would be interested in it. Yeah.
They're so phenomenal. The works are so exciting to me. The works are so gorgeous that I've started to have art shows for my students, for them to showcase them. And maybe the best way is to send you some of the imagery, because they're so beautiful. They're so touching.
Well, that would be great, because we'd put it in show notes, even if you had like before and after. Now that's way oversimplistic because then we won't have
It is because it's the before and after. It's really a transition.
Yeah.
I do take photographs of the pictures, and maybe if I can get some on a movie or something, I can show you that transition.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Yeah, whatever you send, it'd be a lot of fun because I think it would be very educational. It'd be very,
or I could show you some of the finished products, which are really incredible. They're very just incredible. I mean, one might be, she has this one beautiful picture where it's this picture of a tree, but the tree incorporates a face that's half woman, half jaguar.
Oh,
and
my
it's
God.
so phenomenal. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah, if you could do that, I know I would enjoy it, and I know our audience would, because the people that we're talking to love this kind of thing. They love this kind of conversation. So
it's phenomenal. And I'll send you some of my work too. I painted this mysterious being. She told me in our writings, because you journal and you can ask your painting questions. And once you connect to your painting will answer you. So my painting told me her name is Lola Angelica Luminosa, and she's from South America. And I wrote a whole little novella about that. I've never been to South America, but I do want to go there one day. So these paintings, they kind of unpack this information over time. It's really fascinating.
It sounds like guided imagery in a different landscape.
Yes, it's in your own landscape.
Yeah.
Which once you start to tap that, you realize you're tapping to some universal consciousness. It's part of you, but it's infinite. Talk about connections and possibility. It really blows the doors off of possibility. It makes us realize what creative beings we are.
Very, very interesting. Now, please take a moment. We're running a little bit low on time, but I want to make sure we get into that second really interesting person that you were talking about, because these stories are so fascinating.
And thank you for asking me these questions, because I'm so excited about my students and my work. Flo is wonderful. So Flo first came to one of my group painting workshops, also from my women's circles, and she started this absolutely beautiful painting on her own. Now, she is a retired executive in sales, and I believe she was in her later 60s when she first started to work with me. And so she started to paint and paint and paint and paint and paint. And just this past fall, she had a retrospective of her work, and she's showing her paintings in New Jersey and New York. I helped her hang her show. She sold some pieces. And what she said to me is, Leslie, becoming a visionary artist is everything. Because for her, she had quite a success in her life, but she knew that she had all of this. She has such incredible wisdom that she realized that she wanted to do more. And so for her to get to that spot of being a visionary artist, she has her woman circles that she does. She has one tonight, which hopefully I'll be able to join later tonight. And she's showing her work. So for her, that new role in her life at that time of her life is really crucial.
Interesting.
And her work is also extraordinarily beautiful.
Mm-hmm. It sounded like she started in a place as an artist in a certain respect. She had a certain artistic quality, the way you described it.
Well, I think all of these women have at some point, like they may have studied it, like Maria studied it in college, but never really went into it as a career. Flo, that's a good question. I don't know if I think she's always been a very creative thinker, but I don't know if she was that involved in art processes at all. She was really in sales, though that can be very creative in a sense,
Yeah.
And being an executive or, the arm of a business is a very creative endeavor. But I don't know if the visual art, she had dabbled into it deeply until at this stage of her life.
Well, let me ask you a guy question now that just occurred to me. Okay, this is a little This is a little not deep, okay?
Go ahead.
But what's the medium that you recommend for the most intimate self-realization?
I was going to answer that very freshly because my mind went somewhere else.
Okay.
But with painting, this process that I use, it is acrylic on canvas. And what's nice about that is it's very forgiving. Watercolors, people think they're easy. They're actually quite difficult, and people can get frustrated with them. But I think acrylics are great. You can clean them up rather easily. And I would suggest that, acrylic on canvas.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Well, I know that our group would be very, very interested to see anything you would send. We'll put it up on the show notes, no question about it. If you have a video, we can load a video. If you have pictures, we can load pictures. We can do that. It would be a lot of fun. And I think it would bring another level of understanding and appreciation to the work that you're doing, and it would be fun. Now, the other question, which, because we're global here, we're in 87 countries, so I know somebody's going to ask, can she do this virtually?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I'm known as the art doctor virtually online. So I do teach. I have some students over in California at the moment. And as long as we can figure out our schedules, yes, I do mentorships online. It is possible. So it's just coordinating our EST with GMT or PCT, just getting our time zones correct.
I got you. Well, Leslie, tell us a little bit, just as we wind up here, how people can reach you. We'll have it in the show notes, but those who are driving their car to work thinking, hey, this would be interesting, can you give us the way for people to connect with you?
Absolutely. So for anybody listening, I would like to let them know that they can have a free Get Your Mojo Back breakthrough session with me. And that's about 1 hour. And they can schedule that by going to mojo.acuityscheduling.com. And if they have any questions about this process, or they would like to connect with me and they see that in that scheduling time it doesn't work with their time zone, they can always email me about my process, or if they'd like me to speak to any of their groups, which I can also do on the East Coast or online if they like. And that would be at Leslie Nolan, Nolan, Nolan Design, DESIGN.com.
So let me ask you one more time. So mojo.acuity scheduling is all one word.
That's correct.
.com. Okay, so that's interesting. I don't think that was in your notes that you sent me, but it may be in there. I just missed it, but I'll definitely put it in the show notes. It sounds totally interesting. We'll get that squared away. We'll pass that on. It sounds very, very interesting. And I just really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Oh, thank you so much. It's fascinating to talk with you. And I would love to have some more conversation about mind science and connecting the left and right hemisphere of the brain, because, I love the spiritual and the mystical, but I also love the brain science. I think it's incredible.
Well, the guy that I would say is thinking even more about it is the Steve Campbell interview, because he's so much of what you're talking about was very much in line with what Steve was talking about. He's 108, Core Brain Journal 108. And it's really, in a way, an affirmative process. The negatives, just when we started talking, I was thinking of Steve, because, the issue is so many of us are lost in what we didn't do or what we should have done.
This is the chance, even if it's just a canvas, even if it's just a painting. This is a creative step to something new.
So good. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been great talking to you. We'll do it again sometime. Yeah. All right. You have a good one.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Core Brain Journal. We're working every day behind the scenes to bring you reports that connect research benches with those street trenches. Here we share the complexity of mind science because, as you know, details really do matter. One of the most pervasive, misunderstood challenges is how commonplace medications, like those written for ADHD, are used so regularly without clear guidelines. If you think you'd like more specifics, take a minute to download my 2-page PDF packed with video links and references on the absolute essentials of how to start ADHD medications. They're easily available at corebrainjournal.com/start. Thanks for listening. Do connect and stay tuned. Together we can make a difference.